the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, because the world needs to know.
Welcome to Say So, where we talk about it, whatever it is, because what you do not know can hurt you. So let's get to the root. I'm your host, Letitia R. Stuckey. And for today's episode of Say So, I have my very special guest, Miss Vicky Davis. I call her Vicky, Victoria, if you will. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about how we met. Okay, hold on. We met through my cousin. She's friends with my cousin. And we reconnected, I think it was 2017, with one of our mutual friends. She had launched was it
Girls to Women.
Yes, Girls to Women. And so I just wanted to bring her on because we've reconnected since then, and she has an awesome testimony, and I just wanted to provide time and space for her to just release whatever the Lord would have her to say in her own special way. So tell us who you are. What do you do? Some things about you.
Okay, I'm Victoria Davis. Some might know me as Victoria Hall. I'm born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
Born and raised, been here all my life.
Mm-hmm.
I am a mother of 5.
Okay.
I became a mother at a very young age, but we'll cover all of those things.
Okay.
I'm a hairstylist, a candle maker,
Mm-hmm.
A motivational speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and a community leader.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. How many hats is that? I lost count.
Yeah.
But that's good. That means you're multi-talented, and this is good. So what? I don't know. You could begin wherever you want, because I will be learning along with everybody else because I've not heard the totality of your testimony. So, tell us about your, I guess, childhood.
Okay, like I said, I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My mother, she has 5 children.
Okay.
My mother's no longer living, but she had drug issues.
Okay.
I was 2 years old and I was removed from her home. I was told that she left us for about 3 days in the household with no food, and another adult called social services on us. That's how we eventually got removed out of her care.
Okay.
So I went to foster care at the age of 2. Came out of foster care about the age of 11. Okay. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. Now, the years of being in foster care was very, very hard. It was me occupying a house of more of like 10 to 12 children.
Okay.
So at all different age levels. So I think the highest went up to 18, because after 18 you kind of age out into the adult system. She was allowing some of them to kind of just stay that she had adopted.
Okay.
So it was a very interesting household that I grew up in, being in the foster care system. There's a lot of things that go on within the foster care system, at least when I was growing up in it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of abuse, mentally, sexually, physically, that a lot of people don't like to talk about, coming from a fostering home, a foster system, because it can be hurtful.
Yes.
It can make you feel like you're not worthy to have some of the things that people that grew up with their biological families was able to have access to.
Yes.
And so for a long time, I didn't talk about my story. So I didn't even share it because it just took me back to a very dark place.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people have not walked in my shoes. And so to not just talk about it, to not have no one feel like you having a pity pot.
Uh-huh.
So my mom came back. She went into rehab and she got us back.
Okay.
And I was 11 years old, so I re-entered into my mom's home. My mom really didn't ever ask what kind of went on in the foster home.
Gotcha.
She never really seemed to care about the details of what went on. Okay. So there was a lot of things that went on. I was first penetrated at the age of 5.
Okay.
By someone that was very, very older than myself.
Okay.
So when she got me back, I was already used to doing things that children shouldn't even be exposed
Right.
to.
This is true. Yeah.
You know, so I ended up having my own child. I got pregnant at the age of 13.
Okay.
I had my first baby at the age of 14.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing to still go to school. Then my mama came home. I was like 16, and she said, "Oh, the house is going up under foreclosure. I got enough room for me and your brother and your sister, but I don't have enough room for you and the baby."
Okay.
So I was basically 16 years old, homeless.
Okay.
Me and my 2-year-old son, and then I didn't know it, but I was already pregnant with my second child.
Okay.
So I had my second child at the age of 17. Veronica.
Okay.
She took me and my baby in.
Mm-hmm.
She had an apartment in Skyline, and she said, "Of course you can come." I went in there and see a fellow, basically sister, on the street.
Right.
So she took me and my baby in. She already had, I think, 2 of her own babies, so I was very pleased and happy that she even agreed to us coming to stay in her apartment.
Yes.
Where she already was very cluttered, you know, at that moment. So I was very grateful for her. She took us in, and from then, a school social worker, Faith Locklear.
Okay.
She came along and she said, "I can help you be able to get housing."
Okay.
So I was like, "Oh, you can?"
Yeah.
You know, so she was like, "Sure, yeah, I can help you."
Okay.
So then I moved out into my own apartment in Maryland Apartments.
Okay.
That's where I met Tony.
Okay.
So it always have a circle coming back around.
Okay.
So that's where I met Tony, and even a lot to this day, I don't really think Tony know the ins and outs of my story. You know, of coming from the fostering system to being the mother or the single mother that I was in a crazy environment of like Maryland Apartments.
Yes.
And so I'm very, very grateful where I'm at today. That God's grace and mercy, His hands was on me, and I can never deny Him for carrying me in such a way that He has. So I think that's kind of like the basic part of me, just going into it. I did graduate high school.
Okay.
With 2 babies.
Amen.
I graduated from Reynolds High School.
Okay.
I went on later to actually get a degree.
Okay.
I have a BS in criminal justice. Okay. So I furthered my education a little bit more. And while instilling hope into my children,
yes,
trying not to get them to go or feel like their life is mirrored my life.
Right.
You know, so I paid attention to trying to be the best mother that I could be, to where my children wouldn't have to fall in the footsteps of where my mother had kind of, I don't want to say dropped the ball, but life kind of dealt her a rough hand.
Yes.
And so I just made sure I try to stay connected to people that could help me.
Yes.
I try to stay connected to a fellowship of a church, where it could be more of a community for me and my children in case I was in hard needs, you know. And people have really helped me along the way. I cannot make it seem like this journey has just been all about Vicky or about myself, because there's been a lot of people along the way that has come to help me and my children. And even now, I'm still building teams of people, even though I'm in a position now to try to give back and help out in the community. It's still me building those relationships and those teams of people that has the same type of heart to serve other people that's in a less fortunate situation.
Right. Makes sense. Wow. And with your background, that makes perfect sense. It's like what you've been through is what you've been called to on a level. Now, let's rewind the verse. Okay. Let's see. The first thing that caught my eye when you said at 5, the penetration, how old? You said much older. Was it like an adult male or just older teen? Adult. 18?
He was 18 already at the he was already 18.
Okay.
And it took a lot of years before it even came out, because you be very scared as being a foster kid. A lot of people, the older siblings or kids that's there, they kind of instill into the younger people that nobody cares about you. Nobody's going to really believe you.
Yes.
Because of where we at. We're in a foster home. We're we're away from our biological family. So who's going to believe what you have to say? Right. So a lot of times foster kids, they stay quiet, and you usually sometimes you get shipped around to where it's no point in even saying anything because you never know where you might land. You might land somewhere that's totally more corrupted than where you came from.
Right.
And in this type of society, we hear that all the time. Kids being left in basements.
Yes.
Kids being left in like closets and things like that. So at that moment, you it's either flight or fight.
Yes.
So it's like, you learn to kind of just sweep things up under the rug. Try not to be the problem child by keep telling on people and all of that. And you just keep praying your way through it.
Wow. So was there any acting out? Was there any way that maybe had your foster mother been vigilant, she might have connected the dots or anything like that?
I just think at that time she had a lot of different walks of life. And it was really hard for her to ping on one incident. Because it was a lot going on. It was just a lot. So I just try to never just hold one person accountable.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, the justice system and the caseworkers, as they came to actually observe, they should have been observant a little bit more to the household.
Right.
That maybe she had too many children at one time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So it was a lot of us, and from all different walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
I had a brother at the time in there. He was like a meth addict.
Okay.
So he was a little baby getting weaned off of meth.
Wow. Gotcha.
So it was some other ones in there who had been addicted to crack cocaine,
mm-hmm.
and those children needed a little bit more attention. Not saying I
Definitely.
didn't need the attention, but those children, they was a little bit more needy.
Yes.
And so now that I'm grown, looking back in on the situation, I just think that it took her focus in an area where she kind of thought from the eye
mm-hmm.
that they good.
Okay, gotcha. Now, how many bedrooms is with all these kids?
She had I think it was a 6-bedroom house.
6 bedrooms.
And she had like different sets of bunk beds
mm-hmm.
in each of the rooms. A lot of the boys occupied the rooms. So it'd be like 4 or 5 boys in like one room.
Okay.
Then it'd be like 4 or 5 girls in another
mm-hmm.
room, but we all had like bunk beds.
Okay.
And so that's how she was basically able to. Now, back in the day, they put more children in the household
mm-hmm.
if you had bigger space.
Right.
And I think when she became a foster mother, she was married.
Okay.
Her husband passed away along the way. Like, I think he passed away when I was more like 4 years old.
Okay.
I came in when I was like 2,
mm-hmm.
and then I think he passed away when I was either 4 or 5 years
okay.
old, leaving her to then be like a single
right.
foster mom.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So with that background, and you're talking about how you're even currently today building your community, there's so much to be done. What is your insight and opinion about the current foster care system, or are you kind of up to date on how things have changed and what's going on today?
I'm not really too much up to date on what has changed. Only thing I think I know, they do a little bit more screening for as the parents
mm-hmm.
to make sure that they're the living situation is more up to date, to make sure that there are more 2-parent foster care at homes.
mm-hmm.
But how well are the social workers on those ends? I'm not really sure,
mm-hmm.
because sometimes they don't just be on the foster mother end, but it be on the actual worker end, not doing what they need to do to connect, to make sure all the resources for the child is in place. So I'm trying to get into the Forsyth County system to see if I can work a little closer with some of the social workers here that might go into the homes
mm-hmm.
to kind of see where the gap is at. Where the gap is at, because it's certainly a gap, because so many kids come out feeling like they don't have what they needed or what they should have got.
Yes.
While being placed in foster care.
Yes. Now, with the community and the follow-up, were you like in counseling after the transition? Well, I know you were only 2, but at any point was there like a continuum of care, like counseling and follow-up to see what's going on, how you're developing, how this placement or whatever is affecting you, how you're not being with your mom and siblings is affecting you?
Well, no, they didn't do any of that. Only thing that we had was where my mom, we can do visitations.
Yes.
So in visitations, the social worker would kind of like ask overall questions like, okay, you okay? Yes, I'm all right.
mm-hmm.
Is anyone harming you?
mm-hmm.
And like I said, sometimes you just say no, because if you say yes, Where you gonna take me?
Exactly.
I don't know where I might end up at. And then I went in with my two brothers, my real two brothers.
Okay.
So for me to say something was wrong, that means we were gonna now be separated again.
Yeah.
Which eventually we did get separated. They had went off to other homes simply because they was considered like troublemakers.
Mm-hmm.
They was rebellious on different things that was going on within the home.
Okay.
So they eventually had got separated from myself.
Gotcha.
And that was still a very scary thing to now be in a home by myself, because now I don't know anyone
Mm-hmm.
when I was with my real siblings.
Exactly. Wow. So has that, like, do you think that had any bearing on your relationship with them now? Like, with that separation, like, once y'all got older, did y'all just come back together, or is there kind of like a distance because you didn't share the household but for so long?
No, we came back, and we was more tighter.
That's good.
Than we were probably then, because I guess we realized that we was in the same fight.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't no one feeling like, oh, you got better treatment than what I got. Your story is going to be better or different than my story.
Right.
So I think me and my three older siblings, we share a deeper bond than my last two siblings, simply because we was in the struggle together.
Yes.
We was aware of some of the abuse together,
Mm-hmm.
So my oldest sibling, he's now deceased.
Okay.
But the next one, which is my older brother, Phil, but he's the next one in line. He's out, but I feel like he's had a lot of how can I say? He's had a lot of mishaps in life, and I feel like it comes from our upbringing of our story.
Certainly.
I have worked to have more therapy sessions within my life, to make me feel like a valuable, whole, worthy person.
Right.
But I don't think he's done the same.
Yeah.
And so at times when we talk, you can still hear the disconnect of the hurt that he endured for so long, and he compacted within his life. And so some of the decisions I feel like he's done made in his life, it has a lot to do with the upbringing of what he's trying to compress and not talk about.
Exactly. Definitely. That makes sense. And I think a lot of times with the males, they don't really, how many males do you know say, I want to go to therapy, I need to talk to my counselor, so but I think that's unfortunate, because you just carry that pain, and it comes out in other ways that aren't necessarily healthy.
Yes.
So that makes sense. Mothering. Now, with the history that you had, like being disconnected from your biological mother, how did that make you, I don't know, how did that play out in your role as a mother with your children?
Well, first, I kind of made sure I stayed away from drugs, because in my mind, I felt like the drugs made all the difference. And why my mother could not be there for me.
Yes.
I felt like the drugs took over her in a way that she was incapable of being a mother. Leaving children in a house that's all up under the age of 10 and down for 3+ days with no parental guidance.
Right.
That's a little insane.
Yes.
So as I started having my children, of course, we always say, oh, I'm not going to do this to my kids. I'm not going to do that. But my main thing was to making sure I don't indulge in street drugs.
Yes.
Because I just felt like street drugs, it end up being somewhere harsher, know. Now, I had my rodeo with my cigarettes. But I always really was optimistic about not using drugs.
Yes.
The cocaine and then the crack cocaine and the heroin, just the harsher drugs. I just felt like it's parents' demise that's trying to really sufficiently raise children.
Right.
That's true. So I just always made it in my mind to where I didn't want to be around that. And if I did, my grandmother used to always say, it's not where you live, but it's in your house where you live. So the outside is not where you have to live, but in your home. So even when I was placed in those environments that was highly drug infested areas, I just always remained that mentality of knowing this is just where I have to be inside my house, but the outside environment is not my home.
Gotcha. So what age would you say you started your healing process?
At the age of 15.
Okay.
At the age of 15, I went to a school counselor, and I just felt like I was so depressed, like I want to commit suicide. And I went to her, and I was just crying, and I was just letting her know I always felt like my life was different than a lot of other kids who I went to school with, saying that I had to go straight home from school because I had a baby. And not saying it was somebody else's problem, because those are things that I kind of created for my own self. But it was just a little overwhelming.
Yes.
And at that point in my life, I felt like I either needed some counseling, or I might not be here today.
Okay, gotcha. And she hooked you up?
Yeah, she helped me get through to a good counselor. I started having counseling sessions. Then when those kind of like was over,
yeah,
I made sure. So by 17, you enter into a new realm of grades. I went back to some counselors and was like, okay, I think I need a little bit more therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So each year that I went to therapy, it got a little bit more intense of who I was and where I come from. I was very confused about who I was supposed to be.
Yes.
What I was supposed to be.
Right.
And was I on the right journey of being a young lady that I always saw a picture of me being somewhere greater than where I was, but I didn't never know how to get there.
Right.
I didn't never know how I can become the person that I visioned. I see this vision of a well-off young lady, pretty smile, but it's like, how do I get there?
Right.
I was in such a dark realm. I didn't know how to get there.
Right.
And so therapy over the years helped me to be able to sort through my emotions, and it helped me sort through my identity crisis, what I thought, because at one point in time, I felt like I was a lesbian, from some of the things that happened.
Yes, definitely.
It had me really questioning whether or not if I even wanted to be with a man.
Right.
So it helped me sort out through a lot of those identity crises that I could relate to, that I felt was wrong in my life.
Gotcha. That's good. That's good. I'm glad you started as early as you did, because wow. And I think it's a disappointment that there was no counseling or follow-up when you first start taking, or just continuously to see how life is going, your grades or whatever. Because I experienced the same thing, and there wasn't no counseling, wasn't nothing. You're just glad to have a place to stay, so you stay here and you get it. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's one definitely thing that that could change in the system. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of in classes about this sort of thing, foster and adoptive and all of that. And they're saying that there's like a recidivism rate. So like if your parent, if you as a child were in the system, then your children, it's like it continues, like a generational curse. It continues. So I'm just saying, if y'all are seeing this pattern, what can we do to interrupt that pattern? I don't know, but that's just my thought process. Because it becomes a revolving door sometimes. Yeah.
It does become a revolving door. It really does, because once I got out of high school, one of my social workers, she said, Victoria, now you can really be a statistic to where if you start having kids, they can go into the system. And I was in a very abusive relationship with my daughter's dad, and they end up snatching my children. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that was like a nightmare. That was like the worst thing that I didn't want, because now I'm hearing those words of your children will be in the system. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they said, okay, we're going to give you like 6 months to get everything right, get your stuff together and all of this. Within them 6 months, I went to some parenting classes. Okay. But I started writing to myself, how can I change this, that this never have to happen again? Right. The thing that I realized, some of the things that I took from him come from me not knowing and loving myself. Yes. So the years of counseling before, it only helped me to just still survive. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. It didn't help me to learn how to love Vicky. Oh, gotcha. And so then I worked hard to get them back, and I got them back with me. And then I just started really paying attention to the type of relationships that I would have. Yes. If we got to argue all the time, that's not for me. Right. I started paying more attention to the environments of how I want to control the environment for my children. Yes. And so until I think the person that's in it start being more aware of their surroundings and how they want to see the change of their life, I don't know how we're going to quit the recidivism of the children going right back into the system. Right. Because sometimes the parent be so used to discord. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And dysfunction. Yeah, it's familiar. Yes, it's so familiar. Yeah. So you just living in the same cycle. Mm-hmm. But until you realize this is not how life's supposed to work
Yes.
is very dysfunctional, I think that's when it'll click to say, okay, no more.
Right.
I won't take my kids through what I've already know will be devastating in their life. You know,
Yes.
so I'm very happy to where my children are at. I feel like I am breaking generational cycles already. You know, my oldest is 23 with no children.
Amen.
Then I have a 19-year-old with no children. You know, and then I have a 16-year-old with no children. And of course, the younger two, we're gonna keep praying that they get through the same thing.
Right.
But already, reason why I feel like I have broken the generational curses because my two daughters. You know, I know boys are different. You know, the world have a different stigma on boys. But my daughters are 19 and 16. I had my first baby at the age of 14. Exactly. I became pregnant at 13. Right. Had him at 14. So to me, the chains are broken.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Amen. That's a blessing. So, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. So would you say, like, when because I know I went to school with a set of twins and their mom had them at 12, at 12. Oh, so anyway, beautiful ladies and mom beautiful. Look like they don't age at all. But would you say that might be a red flag of a young lady getting pregnant early, or an indication of something, you know, that something may have happened early on if she's exposed or knows about sex or even curious about it or something?
Yes, it could and it couldn't be.
Okay.
You know, because every person is different.
That's true.
Every person is different. So speaking for myself, when I started liking someone, I thought those was the things to do from what I was already exposed to.
Right. Yeah.
So of course, until someone come back to say, okay, you don't do this, you don't do that, da da da, which came later in life, but it didn't come earlier.
Immediately. Yeah.
You know, so if it would have came earlier, it probably would have saved me from wanting to adventure in areas that I knew children shouldn't venture in.
Gotcha.
You know, so as well as keeping your eye around people that's in the household, because hurt people.
Definitely.
And I realized the guy who had hurt me had been hurt and abused as a child himself. So I started trying to understand the walks of life with people.
Yes, makes sense. Wow. You broke a generational curse in that, like they say statistically, you know, if you're abused, you abused other people and all of that. But you've definitely destroyed that generational curse as well. Now, with your girls, was there anything in particular? I don't know. I'm sure it's not a formula or something you can say or do, but was there anything that maybe as mom you drove home or you really kind of drilled in there that you think stuck and helped them to?
I just talked. Once they got past like 8 years old, I was very cautious of who I allowed in my house.
Yes.
I didn't allow my girls or my children to spend a night at other people's house.
Right.
Because I couldn't control what went on in other people's homes.
That's true.
So to keep control, I really that's how I controlled the atmosphere. That no, you can't spend a night at people's house. I don't allow people to spend a night. If they wanted to spend a night to a minimum, they could, no more than like one night at my house. And me and the parents would talk. They can come in and see how we lived and anything. But when my girls got to an age of like 8, 9-ish years old, I started having very uncomfortable conversations.
Okay.
I started letting them know, well, beforehand, you start saying these certain areas is a no-no to anybody.
Yes.
That tries to set you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
So then they knew that, like, no, you don't touch in certain areas. And then we started having those uncomfortable talks that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Right. They don't want to talk about children having sex at a young age.
Yes.
They don't want to talk about having babies and you having to struggle through school because of the decisions that you make at a young age.
Yes.
And so I just always felt like I was talking too much, but then I knew I wasn't because I know that the world will talk more to our children.
Yes.
And so I just made sure I always kept the conversations about hard things, drugs, you know, letting them know how drugs, it might make you feel good, but it can alter your brain to where you get in a place to where you don't want to do nothing in life. Yes. And you lose a grip on life. And it's very easy to do. Some people think that it's hard. It's very easy to to get your grip out of your hands.
Right.
And before you know it, you be saying, I don't know how I got here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always just kept talking. When their friends would come over, you know, they used to be like, oh gosh, she
You
always
talk to them
talk.
too?
I talk to them too.
Good, because they might not have had that.
That's right. You know, so I was just a talker. From what I went through, it just made me want to keep trying to instill it in my children that everybody is not lovable.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is not going to be here on earth to love on you. Some people are designed and was here to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't want you to be naive to people thinking everyone is going to be lovable,
Mm-hmm.
like your mom,
Yes.
or, you know, some of your family members that love on you. And I just didn't want them to think that, to have a misconception of life and people.
Yes.
So I talked a lot.
Okay. It obviously worked. It helped. Now, the conversation that you gave them at 8, did you ever have a conversation about good touch and bad touch growing up?
No.
Neither. Okay.
No. And that's the reason why I think I try to cover a lot of areas that I knew I didn't have those talks
Yes.
in. I try to cover a lot of areas about, you know, when I was growing up, it was like, oh, you too young to talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you too young to know about drugs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have these DARE programs at the time when I grew up. It was a DARE program.
Just say no.
Yeah, just say no.
Right.
So, you know, you went through the DARE program, and then that's when you out, 12, 13-ish. That could be a little too late.
Mm-hmm.
That could really be a little too late. So when they start talking to you about like sex and drugs and friends and stuff like that, and so if I felt like that was a little too late at 12 and 13, I wanted to get before the ball.
Yeah, get ahead.
And get ahead of it and you know, try to go ahead and instill it in them. So when they did take them classes, they was like, Mom, we felt like we knew a lot.
Ah.
You know, we felt like we thought a lot of this. And I was like, that was the whole plan. And
Exactly.
I felt more accomplished as an adult that I did start those conversations at a younger age, just so they'll know. Because I really felt like nobody told me.
Right.
I didn't know.
Right.
So a lot of the years I felt like I was a problem. I was the problem of why these things happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
When in all nationality, I was the child.
Exactly.
You know,
always blame
so
yourself. It's your fault. Yeah. Yeah. That's a plan and a seed from the enemy, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So now, did you have good touch and bad touch talk with your sons too?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Because you mentioned the difference, so I was wondering how that went.
I let him know. As a boy, you didn't want to get touching on younger girls or touching on people. Period. You could get a stigma of being like a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you just don't want to be doing things that you didn't have no business.
Right.
So yes, growing up in school, you know, with him playing sports, Lord forgive me, I even had talks with my son about dating outside your race. Mm-hmm. Being an African American man trying to date an opposite race. Right. How sometimes it can hurt you more than had helped you. Yeah. You know, as he got older, he made his choices of who he was going to date. He did date outside his race, but I think he dated with a little bit more knowledge about what he was going into and what he was dealing with when he decided to date outside his race. And I was okay with that. I just wanted you to have the knowledge and the sources to know what you're dealing with. Right. So how you can know how to conduct yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't be responsible for nobody else, but how to conduct you. Yes. And so, to this day, he's 23 and he always come back and he say, Mom, I just love you so much for all the things that you did. One time he said that I whooped him too much. Okay. I made him stay in the house too much, you know. So now he be like, I just thank you. I thank you so much.
Ain't no telling what you kept him out of because he was in the house.
Yeah.
Okay, well that is good. Wow, that sounds, I'm excited about the different generations that's going to come from your children. They probably going to be talkers, you know, and stuff like that when they eventually have children or what have you. So that's good. And once again, that's several more generational curses that you've destroyed, and that's a blessing. So tell us about your relationship with the Lord. When did you find him? What was that like? We know a little bit pretty much about what life was like before him. Is there anything else that you experienced? We know about the childhood and the relationships and all of that.
Well, okay, so growing up in a foster home, my foster mom, that was one thing I guess she felt like she was doing right, was taking us all to church.
Okay.
And we was, and at that time you had some pedophiles in the churches. So some hurtful things happened in the church too from a deacon.
Okay.
So in my mind, I was like, I'm not going to church.
Right.
That's a hurt place, you know. And so even for years with my mom, her going to church, I really felt like I never connected with church. I would just be like, I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to do anything. So I kind of went in and went out. But once I got like 19 and I'm, really out on my own in the world, by myself, I didn't go to church for years.
Okay.
I did not go to church. I knew the Bible and I felt like I could read the Bible and know the word for myself. And I knew Proverbs 3 verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to their own understanding. And it was like I held on to that Bible verse for years, and that was like the only Bible verse I knew for years, right? And so my mom ended up passing away, and I felt like I had nothing. I felt like I had nobody. I felt like nobody understood the pain, even though we had a lot of dysfunction as mother and daughter. We had made a lot of amendments as well, to the hurt and the pain.
Yes.
So now I'm at a point where I actually got a mama, and now she's gone.
Yeah.
So I just felt so hurt and so alone. And so I was 26 years old when my mama died, and I ran back to a church where my car had broke down originally in front of this church. I didn't think no one was at the church. The pastor and the deacon came out and was like, we're going to pray for you right now because obviously you're going through a lot. My kids had got taken away from me. My car done broke down, right? But at that time, I still didn't run back to the church.
Right.
It took some years later when my mom died, but I always ran back to that church. That all that other stuff happened to me at. With the broke down car. And at the time, my children was taken away from me. So they prayed for me. And so when I was still going through, that's where I went back to.
Okay.
I went back there. The congregation took me in with loving arms and open arms. And that's what really started my journey.
Okay.
To really knowing God.
Yes.
We know of him. But really, really dwelling in his presence.
Yes.
So at 26, that's when I really got really serious with the word. And I still wasn't perfect.
Right.
I still had some flaws and some things, but I wanted my children to have a church covenant. I wanted my children to have more of a foundation. Within the church home to be able to do display some of the gifts and talents that God has given them.
Yes.
So when I say they took us in, it was a lot of watching the children. The women watched the children. The deacons stayed in their place. So it was real different from when I grew up in church as a child versus now I'm an adult with my children coming to church. I saw a difference. Yes. So I felt like I didn't have to be afraid and worry about if something was going to happen to my children or things like that. So I was very, very grateful of the church home that we had came a part of. Yeah. Because they was more like our family. They took us in with loving arms. And the pastor of that church, he actually taught the word. So I was able to start understanding the word on a different level than I ever had in life. And so I was very, very thankful. And I took an excitement to God, So that's how I really got back on my spiritual journey with God.
So how are things now? Because we heard about so did you have like an encounter? When did you like dedicate or rededicate your life to Christ? What was that like that day?
At the age of 33.
Okay.
I did it at the age of 33, and my children all I had 3 children at the time. We had all got baptized together.
Oh wow.
And I was already married though, but my husband he was saying that he was of a different denomination.
Oh, okay.
So now I know about all them things.
Okay,
he done passed on and went on with the good old Lord. So now I feel like my slate has been washed clean to where I know now I would not date being unequally yoked to someone of a different faith denomination than myself.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. So y'all all got 33. Cool. So what is it like now with the Lord on board and all of that? We kind of got a glimpse into it. We destroying generational curses. We're doing things differently. And that's amazing that he was with you even then, like giving you the wisdom to train your children up without necessarily knowing that's what you were doing or what have you. So so what is it like now? With you and Father?
I feel like now I have one of the deeper conversations than relationships, not conversations, relationships with him than I ever had before. You know, sometimes I just weep with knowing he never left me.
Right.
He never gave up on me, and he still trusts me with a lot of things, you know, and I don't want to get teary eyed and cry. But his grace is so good, his mercy, his love. And I realized through him never leaving me with a lot of other things that I done been through, I learned how to really love me. I learned how to love me because he loved me.
Yes.
You know, he never gave up. It's been situations where I know I could have been dead and gone, and it was no one but him.
Yes.
And so now I'm forever grateful.
Yes.
When I talk about him wherever I go.
That's good.
Sometimes my kids be like, Mom, this is not a church setting.
Oh, okay.
You know, and I just be like, oh, that's what you thought. Okay, that's what you thought. Because he not something I just put on the shelf and take off when it make me feel good or anything. I carry him wherever I go.
Yes.
I talk about how prayer go places we can't go.
Definitely.
How it do things that we couldn't fathom to get done.
Yes.
You know, we be wanting to do things in our own time and how we think it should work out. But God is the orchestrator of it all. And I realize I thank God for my testimony now. As weird as it might sound, because people are like, you thank God for the hurt? And I'd be like, yes, because if I wouldn't have went through that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't have the mindset that I have today. I wouldn't be probably the woman that I am today. So I'm very, very thankful. At that moment, I probably was crying like, why me? Why me? But now I see why why not me?
Exactly. Yes.
You know, I'd be like, well, why not, Lord? You know?
Definitely.
You know, so I feel like if he didn't give me nothing, no other title ever in this life, I feel like I am a missionary by heart.
Definitely. Wow. And there is purpose in your pain.
Yes.
You have to get to the other side of it to see that there was purpose in it. Yes. But definitely. And all of those things he's anointed you to be able to see, detect in other people, and to be able to aid or help with, because you know what firsthand what it feels like. You know, it's like they say, game recognized game. You can see that hurt in another child. You can see that hurt in another relationship, marriage, whatever, what have you. So that's a gifting and a calling that he has given you, several of them. So definitely the world needs what you have in your experience, your testimony. Is there anything else before we close or in this portion that you want to say to encourage somebody, or anything that you have on your heart?
I would let any young child know, or any young person, teenager, just know that learn how to pray. You know, if you don't know how to pray, ask someone that do know how to pray to teach you how to pray. Get you a journal and write down some of the things that hurt you the most. But always remember that there always become a light, even in the dark.
Yes.
It's always going to become light. You know, even when you can't see it, you don't know how it's going to happen, and remain positive. And you'll see him work it out for you. You'll just see things get better. You know, you'll see people, angels come into your life that's meant to help you.
Yes.
And so just always remain positive and hang around positive people.
Yes, definitely. Please do. So that made me think of another question. You talked about journaling. Do you have any books stirring inside, or any writing ventures that you might want to, I don't know, delve into? Because journaling is very therapeutic.
Yes. I do want to write a couple of books about my life, but I want them to be like a 5-part series, just so you can really understand and break down. I can really go in depth about early child, you know, middle age and high school, my pre-adult life, you know, things like that I can really, really go in depth about some of the deeper things that I went through in dating.
Yes.
You know, dating wrong people that
Yes.
that I was once held hostage in a house, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, just deeper of things that I know women, men, people need to know and they need to hear. So I do eventually plan on writing
Okay.
a 5-part book part
Okay.
of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But currently, as of like what's this, April,
Mm-hmm.
I will be dropping a journal, and
Okay.
it's a divine journal journey,
Okay.
and it's basically to help your negative mindset turn into a positive mindset while telling yourself affirmations on the journey to love who you are,
Mm-hmm.
who God has made you to be, while you're deciphering what is your purpose,
Yes.
why are you here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do these things, it'll help you be more on goals of what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
who you are, how to identify with you and not the world, because
Yes.
social media has came and make everybody be like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But and how to wind down at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much. You on your phones, we on your jobs,
Mm-hmm.
we got the kids, we got the hubby, the boyfriend, we got all these things that come into play. So it's really important that we kind of journal in our morning when you wake up. What are some things you can tell yourself for the day?
Yes.
I will complete all my goals. So then, what are some affirmations? I am beautiful. I am worthy. You know. Then, spending some time with yourself on a break at work, just meditating and you know, writing down what thought came through your head when you just had a time of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And then at night, how can we shut down our brain about 30 minutes before we actually go to bed? What would you sit and do? Would you sit and write? Would you read your Bible a little bit? Would you just take a couple of deep breaths in? And you just write down 3 to 5 things that happen good for you in that day.
Mm-hmm.
And once you complete the journal, you should go back and be able to read it like a book. And it should be a more positive version of yourself.
Exactly. Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. Once again, what you've been through is what you've been called to, because even with the journal and your impending 5-series book, it's like you are allowing what you didn't have, you're pouring that out for other people so that they won't have the same journey, the same testimony, the same experiences. It's almost like one thing I think I told my son a couple of days ago. I went through it so you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And you went through what you went through so other people don't have to, if they don't want to now. If you choose to make the same decisions, feel free. But it won't be because you don't know any different or you don't know any better. Yes. So I'm excited. Look, we have, before the end of the year, we're going to have an indie author workshop. So maybe you can come and get some inspiration, get around other like-minded people that are writing and all of that good stuff. And I'm excited to hear about your journal. I want a copy. I want an autograph copy.
Okay. Yes.
But yes, I want to thank you so much for your time, your story, just the anointing and the calling that God has gifted you with, the treasure that He's placed in your earthen vessel. I feel uplifted. I am inspired. I am optimistic simply by just talking to you and being around you and seeing your life. So bless the Lord. I think that's pretty much what we have for today. I just want you in the audience to remember that God and only God has the final say-so about where you are now, where you have been, and where you are going. You are simply in the process of becoming who and what He created, ordained, destined, and designed you to be for His glory. Until next time, miracles and blessings today and every day.